Bonjour, welcome to Wahsa Distance Education Center's radio Zoom classes. This is SVN3E, grade 11 workplace science, and I am Bronwyn Slate. If you'd like to participate live today, you can call the Wahsa studio at 1-800-465-7144 or 737-4017. You can listen on the radio at 91.9 FM or on the television at Bell Express View channel 972. You are always welcome to join me live through the Zoom link, which is available from me, but also your DEC. Our classes are scheduled from Monday to Thursday from 3 till 4 in the afternoon, and we are in our 6th week of our 9-week course. At this point, you should definitely be submitting work to be graded. The questions are all listed at the end of each IL lesson. They're called the key questions, and they have a little key icon. And these, you need to submit all of them to be graded. So please do them all. Some of them are check your understanding questions in the middle of the chapters, but not all the check your understanding questions. So it's make sure you are following the list. There are a few activities at the end of the units, and then also the review questions at the end of each chapter. So please show all of your work, your steps and your thinking, explain your thoughts fully so that I really can understand what it is that you understand, and also make sure that you're actually answering the question and not just talking on the topic. You are able to do this by hand or electronically. Whatever works best for you is fine for me. As long as I can read it, I will mark it. If not, I will ask you questions. So you can write in your workbook if you want. It is your resource, so you get to decide. However, the spaces are pretty small, so that might not really generally give you enough room, especially if you were giving me full complete sentences opposed to just 1 or 2 words, which I strongly encourage, as that's how we communicate. If you're going to do it electronically, doing it in either Word or Google Doc are the easiest files for me to open. Everyone has access to Google Docs through their NNEC email address. So that is one way to do it. If you need help with that, let me know and I can show you. If neither of those files are what you generally use, I'm sure that whatever it is that you do want to use is probably fine, and we can figure out a way for me to open the files. If you can just reach out and communicate with me so that we can figure that out before handing in all of your work and then me not being able to open it and access your information. There are 3 methods for submitting your work for marking. So the first method is to scan and send your work in electronically. So if you scan your completed work in using a smartphone or device, the iPhone Notes app and the Android Google Drive app both have scan functions. So you can use them to scan your files, and then they become a little bit smaller than just taking pictures. If that doesn't work for you and you just want to take pictures, that's fine too. Either way, I can most likely access it. The scan files just can be a little bit easier to send and easier to read. Then you can send it to me either through email to studentwork@nnec.on.ca and then cc it to bronwyn.slate@nnec.on.ca, or you can send it to me through Facebook Messenger at bslatewahsa. The second method is to drop off your work in Sea Lookout. We have an outdoor mailbox at our location 74 Front Street, or the bright red building next to the post office. And we have a small white mailbox next to our side entrance. So you can just put your work in there at any time. Then the third method is to hand your work into your DEC. Your DEC can either send your work through the Express or fax it to 807-737-1732 or toll-free fax to 1-800-463-7852. If you'd like to connect with me through social media, both my Facebook and my YouTube channel are under the name B Slate Wahsa. So if you want to friend me on Facebook or subscribe to my YouTube channel, then you can get notifications every time I upload one of our classes. All of our classes are recorded, and then I post them as soon as I can after airing. I link all of our lessons into a playlist called SVN3E, so they're easy to find. And also within those are the supplementary videos so that you can access them from their original sources. There's a playlist there so that you can find all of those that are on YouTube. Otherwise, if there's other videos, you have to go into the show notes of each of that particular lesson, and it's linked there. Science is really visual. I try to incorporate as many pictures and diagrams as well as videos as possible in order to maximize our understanding and really connect to these concepts. So just listening to this isn't going to give you the full experience. If you're able to, I strongly advise for you to connect with the videos. So joining me live is one option. Even if you don't want to participate or talk to me, that is fine. Just watching is totally fine. Or watching the replays on YouTube are really going to set you up for the most success. If that doesn't work for you, then you can let me know and I can send you a copy of the recordings, but you just have to let me know so that I can prepare that for you, and then you can have the full experience. If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out and contact me, particularly as we're coming through the end of the year. It's really great if I can know what's going on for you so that I can support you. My email address is bronwyn.slade@nnec.on.ca. My Facebook is Slade Wahsa. My phone number is 807-737-1488, extension 2209, or toll free 1-800-667-3703. My office hours are Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. till 4 p.m., though I do teach the first hour and the last hour of that time, so that's not a great time to try to get a hold of me. All right, I think it's important to start our classes off with my positionality in terms of understanding how I approach education and how I have been shaped to the way that I look at the world. So I have white settler ancestry, I have white privilege, and that means that I have experienced education and education institutions, as well as a society as a greater whole, differently than those who do not have white privilege. This means that my life has been easier, and certain things have been set up for success for me and then barriers for other folks. I try to address this and disrupt this cycle within my courses, though I don't get it right all of the time. I do live in Northwestern Ontario on the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe people and do my best to learn from this culture and honor it and honor the knowledge keepers in my community. Though I am always going to be an outsider and will never truly understand, be able to integrate those teachings into the course as much as probably would be lovely, as I am a white person. This is my first time teaching this course, so I have lots to learn and unlearn. It is a lifelong process, and I'll always probably be on this journey, though I'm working hard to integrate and address concerns of where things might be missing. Because our textbook, I've noticed, is incredibly Eurocentric. So it very much focuses on the experience of the European, the white person as the ideal. And then there is potentially some problematic language, nothing that has come across that is incredibly glaring. Though I know as a white person, I probably don't pick up on everything. But I have picked up that it does ignore Indigenous, Inuit, and Métis knowledges and experiences. Many of the examples given are white communities or white scientists, and they erase any of the wisdom and knowledge that Indigenous, Inuit, and Métis people have. This is incredibly problematic and not very useful. So I work to research and integrate some of that knowledge as that I can from what I can research, but it is a work in progress. So if you have any suggestions or concerns about what I'm doing, please let me know so that I can improve. All right, so we are starting, I believe, unit 5. So making work safe and buildings energy efficient. So, sorry, brain. Unlike other living things, humans have learned to significantly use and modify our environments. The places in which we work and live are major examples. They offer us benefits such as steady jobs, warmth, shelter, and comfort. However, they have placed important responsibilities on us. They've also subjected us to serious risks and challenges. So How do we deal with the waste that we create? What impacts do our buildings and work practices have on the world? How can we better live sustainably with other living things and Earth itself? These are the types of questions that we should be asking ourselves and each other as we think about the responsibility that we have because of our ability to modify our environment and impact those things around us. That's what we're looking at in this chapter. So the first section is lesson 16, and it is talking about protecting the environment at work. So most of us do or will spend much of our daily lives at work. However, if the environment in which we work is not healthy, our health and that of our coworkers can be harmed. Unhealthy work conditions can also lead to environmental, economic, and social problems outside of the workplace. We must make sure that our work environments help to protect us and the environment at large. So our learning goals for this course, or at the end of this lesson, you will be able to describe the 4 R's and explain which we should focus on first and why. You will also understand the procedures, practices, and protocols for making work environments safer. So you know that you've met these learning goals because you know the 4 R's are reduce, reuse, recycle, and recover, and why they should be done in that order. You can also explain what procedures, practices, and protocols make a work environment safer. So let's first dive into the 4 R's. So putting the 4 R's to work at work, waste is all around us. We've talked about this again and again. It's a big part of our lives. We create waste in many, many ways. We waste energy when we leave lights on or leave windows open when the heat or air conditioning is on. We create waste when we take more than we can eat or drink or use more materials than we need for a project. Throwing things in the garbage that can be used again or made into new things also creates waste. So here are some images of landfills or garbage dumps all over the world. I just sort of wanted to show the enormity of what they are, these vast, vast spaces that have a lot of plastic, some cardboard, some things that are recyclable, but just sheer amount of garbage that we have created in these spaces, and that people and animals end up in looking for food. So when I was looking at these pictures, I never thought of it, but then I came across pictures of elephants in garbage dumps, and that was just so far removed from my image of elephants that it sort of took me back a bit. So I thought that I would include this one because it's not here in Northwestern Ontario, we see bears and eagles and various other animals that are fairly common to be in our garbage dumps, obviously not elephants, but I just had never really transferred that knowledge thinking about how other places in the world where there are other animals that are that roam the environment, like elephants or that aren't in our backyard, that of course they're going to end up exposed to this waste as well. Also, people end up in various places in the world, people end up picking garbage and looking for food, looking for things that could be resold or reused, and spend hours a day in garbage dumps trying to survive. So it really has a huge impact. And we had kind of an out of sight, out of mind sort of mentality that when we throw in the garbage, it's gone. And it's not true, it's not gone. So the wasted materials and energies cost each of us time and money. Although we cannot completely eliminate waste, we can manage it better. We talked about this before about how we are not good at managing our waste. We are not good decomposers. And so we need to figure out if we're going to survive. So one way of thinking about it is doing the 4 R's. The 4 R's are the waste prevention practices of reduce, reuse, recycle, and recover. Growing up, and up until preparing this lesson, I had always just thought of the 3 R's, reduce, reuse, recycle. That's the words that I learned and have taught in the past. So recover is something that isn't a newer concept to me, though it makes sense. I just hadn't really considered it. So if we do this, then we cut down our need for trees and mines because we're not extracting more things from the land. We lower our disposal and landfill costs because we're not putting things back into the land, or we're not throwing things out in the same way. We make our environments healthier and safer. And then in terms of thinking about work environments, employers can save money and becoming more profitable and competitive. And this can result in more and safer jobs with higher salaries for employees. So just various directions we can consider when we think about reducing, reusing, recycling, and recovering. So first, we're going to look at these four, but first we're going to look at reduce and what it means. So it means to cut down on the amount of waste that we produce. So it is the cheapest, easiest way to prevent waste. 3 ways to cut costs and reduce waste are to buy in bulk, to use fewer materials, and to use less energy. So for example, sending emails and electronic documents can significantly cut down on paper use and copying and mailing costs. Buying bulk means cost savings and fewer shipping containers to dispose of. Finding ways to use fewer raw materials to make a product or less packaging in which it is shipped cuts down on manufacturing, waste, transportation, and disposal costs. Less packaging also means less garbage once products are unwrapped. Less garbage means less need for landfill sites, and this translates into lower costs for community residents who pay for the garbage disposal through their taxes. So part of all of this is not just looking at the environmental impact, but also the economic impact, as we live in a capitalist system and money makes our world go around. So some folks in the world don't care as much about the environmental impacts and how reducing our use of things means that we are having a smaller environmental impact, but the cost benefits, the saving money, is going to be more meaningful for those folks potentially, and therefore get them to buy in, to just something to consider. So then reuse is the second one. And so reuse means to use something again. So a simple example is using the blank side of a piece of paper already used on the other side. Yeah, it's straightforward enough, and just in terms of reusing things, not having reusable cups, not having using plastic utensils or paper plates or plastic coffee mugs or things like that. There are so many ways that reusing has been integrated into our societal days, hopefully things that are accessible and impactful for you that we can all participate in. So then in work environments, which are a range of things, there are various things that can be reused. So shipping containers, boxes, drums, barrels, bottles, wraps, parts and supplies and fasteners from old machinery or vehicles or things like that. Cables, ropes, and cords, plastic sheets and bags, flower pots and growing trays, wooden pallets, computer systems and training materials, building materials. So really depending on where you work, all of these things can be reused instead of just being thrown out. So at this point, we're now covered enough that you can answer the first set of check your understanding questions on page 129, just to give a general overview about the 4 R's. Okay, so now let's continue. Let's talk about recycling, the third step. So when waste cannot be reduced or reused, it may still be possible to recycle them. To recycle is to break something down into its parts and to use those parts to make something new. Recycling can often be done to a profit, which again, our world is centered on money, so that's always helpful. It also cuts down on the cost of making new products from those materials. So because you don't have to extract those materials, it is cheaper to use recyclable materials generally. So to be recyclable, items are separated into groups of like materials. Each group is known as a stream because it leads to a series of industrial processes designed to recycle its parts. Major streams include metals, plastics, glass, and paper products. And then these streams are divided into specific types and substreams or substreams. Wood, drywall, and other products can also be recycled as long as it's done properly. Okay, so let's look at recycling metals. Aluminum wastes like drink cans can be melted down to make new aluminum products. The alternative is to mine and smelt new aluminum from ore. And the energy savings alone from recycling aluminum instead is 95%. So this means that it takes only 5 units of energy to make a new aluminum drink can from recycled aluminum compared to the 100 units of energy to make the same can from ore. So it is significantly better to not only are we not using the raw material of the aluminum ore, but we aren't using the energy from the electrical energy or however we're using energy. So which means that we're not using that energy being put to use somewhere else to process the materials and make the new can. And that's pretty significant. So it really can make a difference overall. So here are some common metals or alloys that we can get from recycling other sources. So this is in your textbook. So aluminum, like mentioned, are cans, but also vehicle parts, window frames, and eavesdrops. Copper from wiring, transformers, and piping. Lead from vehicle batteries. Brass from piping, decorative hardware. Iron from machinery, vehicles, piping, appliances, ductwork. Steel, machinery, vehicles, plumbing fixtures, and appliances. Silver, photographic materials, computers, jewelry. And gold, computers, electronics, jewelry. So all of these things are possible to take these other products and extract what we need and what we're going to use again, instead of just having them rot and rust and not decompose or contribute anything back for a long time. Okay, so that's metals. So now let's look at plastics. So there are various types of plastics, and these must also be separated into substreams. Recyclable plastics and some paper products bear a symbol like this. Hopefully it's familiar to many folks. There's 3 arrows that are leading into each other in this triangular shape. Each type of recyclable plastic is identified with a number from 1 to 7 in the center of the recyclable symbol. So it goes in here in the middle of the triangle. An abbreviation of the plastic's name may also appear below the recyclable symbol. Plastics without a symbol are usually not recyclable. Recycled plastics. To make new plastic, products may result in energy savings up to 33%. So not as much as metal or as aluminum alloy. Sorry, aluminum, but still significant. So here is a chart that shows the various different types of, the substreams of plastics. So we have one, which is polyethylene tetraphthalate, which typically the first uses. So the first way that we use them is soft drink and juice bottles. But then when we recycle them, they could return back to soft drink or juice bottles or polyester fibers or furniture. Then we have number 2, which is high density polyethylene, which is in detergents, bleach, and oil bottles and milk jugs. And then when we recycle them, they return back to detergent and oil bottles, fencing, plastic lumber, or recycling bins. Number 3 is polyvinyl chloride, which is in piping, building sidings, credit cards, which makes new piping, fencing, non-food bottles, traffic cones, signposts, flooring. Low density polyethylene, number 4, are grocery garbage, sandwich and bread bags, and stretch wrap. So this gets kind of recycled into grocery and garbage bags, containers, pharmacy bottles, tubing, plastic lumber, paneling, and compost bins. Number 5 is polypropylene, which originally become our margarine tubs, outdoor furniture, carpeting, hair and toothbrushes, and they can be recycled into carports, milk crates, measuring cups, food containers, industrial fibers, brooms, bins, and pallets. Number 6 is polystyrene, which originally are foam drink cups, building insulation, egg cartons, videos, and audio cassettes, and can be converted into rulers, CD trays, video cassettes and cases, cafeteria trays, building insulation, toys, foam packaging. And then finally, number 7, anything other, which are in ketchup bottles, cheese and bacon packaging, and they can turn into park tables and benches and fencing. So there's really quite a range of things that can be recycled and what they can actually be built into. So it's not that we're just getting the same product if we recycle it. We can be getting something that is completely different that we still benefit from. All right, and then we have recycling glass. So glass is made in different colors and each must be separated to substreams during recycling. So that's how, same way that plastic has the numbers on them, glass has the colors mean something. So each color substream is then crushed, cleaned, and mixed with new sand, soda ash, and lime. These are the basics ingredients of glass. So the mixture is then melted and used to form new glass products having the same color that they did before. New glass is also made this way. Sorry, new glass that is made this way results in savings of up to 30%. So like aluminum, glass is almost 100% recyclable. The exceptions are light bulbs, cookware, and window glass. Special additives make them difficult to recycle. So when I read this in your workbook and thought about it, this broke my heart because here in Sioux Lookout, and I assume other places close by, we cannot recycle glass. We do not have, our recycling program does not have the ability to recycle glass. So we have to recycle, or we have to throw our glass out into the garbage or hold on to it to reuse it, and potentially take it to Thunder Bay or take it somewhere so that we can access a recycling facility, which means that though the product, the actual object is recyclable, if we don't have the infrastructure, if we don't have the means to do it, then the people can't do that. We can't, yes, the glass is recyclable, but if we can't get it to a recycling plant that is recycling it, then it's still garbage. Which made me start thinking about the northern communities and how they don't have recycling plants. So all of their materials, that the paper, the metal, the plastic, the glass, are all going to end up in their landfills and their garbage dumps because they're not going to ship it out on planes. That's just not cost effective. And so their communities have to take the environmental hit of putting these back into the ground because, again, we don't have the infrastructure set up in order to help these people in these communities, in your communities, to be able to recycle. And that's problematic. That's really concerning in terms of how we're ignoring this issue and saying, yes, everything's recyclable, great, but that's not actually true. There are many things that are recyclable in some places, but not in remote or remote or indigenous communities in remote areas, which is just disappointing. So then let's look at paper products. So paper products today are almost all made from wood. The wood is ground up, then it's treated chemically to make pulp. This separates the wood fibers, and the fibers are then formed into paper by various processes, and the paper is dried. Different kinds of wood make different kinds of paper products. This is why paper products need to be separated, and they're different types when recycling as well. So common examples are newsprint turns into newspapers, community newsletters. Office paper turns back into copying paper, bond paper, computer printouts. Coated paper, the glossy and brochures and flyers of posters are gonna, these are have to be separated. Mixed stock, so envelopes, cardstock, color papers would fall under mixed stock. Box board, which are cereal, tissue, and shoe boxes, opposed to corrugated cardboard, which are like the cartons and boxes. So those are the various ways that paper products are sorted in order to be able to recycle back and be the same type of paper product. So each substream is repulped and made into the same product type. new wood fibers must be added each time because of fibers, not fires, shorten every time that they are processed until they're no longer useful. So that's why they have to add a little bit. So it's not, you're still adding the raw material of wood fibers. So here is a recycling process shown for newsprints. So they start with being transported to the mill and then getting shredded. Then they get pulped where they're mixed with water and other chemicals. Then they're pressed into papermaking and publishing, then sent to be distributed. Then the newspaper is distributed and it ends up in the recycling bin. And then it goes back into the recycling truck and transported, shredded up and around 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 and around. Just keep going. And then finally, we have wood and drywall, which are not things that I realized are recyclable. Again, probably depends on where you live and what access you have. So I doubt that they are recyclable here. If I were to put them in my recycling bin to look out, I doubt that they would pick it up. But used or waste lumber that has not been painted or stained can be stripped away for walkways and gardens or shavings as bedding for pets, which for some reason just totally made me laugh. I don't know why, but it did. It can also be made into kinds of panel boards. Drywall or wallboard is made from a mineral clay called gypsum and hydrated calcium sulfate. The mineral is heated and made into a slurry with water. Then the slurry is sandwiched between layers of thick paper. The resulting drywall is dried and trimmed to length. So during recycling, the gypsum is made into a new drywall or used in cements or fertilizers. Paper is also recycled. So all of these together, you're making more drywall from the previous drywall. And then we have recover. So to recover is to get usable substances or energy from what is left after wastes are first reduced, reused, or recycled. Paper, plastic, and other wastes can be compacted and burned in special incinerators. Then the methane can be collected from old landfills and garbage dumps and burned. So then the heat from both of those sources can be used to heat buildings and run turbines that produce electricity. Composted food waste make a rich nutrient soil conditioner for gardens. Uncontaminated paper and other waste can be used in soil conditioners, mulches, and pet bedding. Materials from one industry can sometimes be used in another industry. So now you can do the key questions on page 132, questions 1 through 3. Just one thing before we move on from the 4 R's is that we want to encourage folks to do them in the order that we say them. So reduce, reuse, recycle, recover. So we want to reduce our consumption of things first so that we don't have to extract things or process them in the first place. That is the most ideal, is if we can manage to not need the materials in the first place. It's the second best option because we're not taking new materials. We're just reusing the materials that are already been made. So that means that we don't need to put energy or resources into a new product. We're just using a product that already exists. So that means it's not in landfill and it is not needing new materials. Then recycle, which when I find has been like the biggest push in my experience, is that it's all about recycle, recycle, recycle. But really we should have been focusing more on reducing and reusing before focusing on recycling, but it is what it is. So recycling is the third option, as there are benefits to having access to the material, even if it's not in its raw form, and how that can save energy, both in extraction and production. But also we need to advocate for recycling to be more accessible for all communities and all people so that we can all take advantage of that. And then finally, the fourth way. So the fourth thing that you want to do if the first 3 don't work is to recover any energy or products from it that can be reused. So maybe not the whole thing, but if we can recover some energy from it, we can extract some energy storage and use it. That is useful. If we can extract some parts and use them in different ways, that could be useful too. Right, so now when you talk about procedures, practices, and protocols. So procedures, practices, and protocols are at work and at home, we need to find procedures that protect the environment. So procedures are steps that are followed to reach goals or results. Practices come from following procedures regularly, and protocols are accepted plans that describe how to reach goals and meet challenges. Okay, so what does that mean a little bit more? So procedures, so waste prevention at work begins with a waste audit. So a procedure would be to regularly have someone walk around your place of business and do a waste audit. So they record all kinds and amounts of waste produced. It should include sites where wastes are produced and may also record so where the waste was produced and why and how the wastes are produced. Then the data is entered into a computer database so that it can be tracked and returned to. So here are some examples of, in some work environments, the types of waste that might be showing up. So in construction, it could be wood, drywall, metals, plastics, brick, block, glass, roofing materials. In institutional services, so like schools, hospitals, offices, paper, organic waste, plastics, chemicals. I've never been anywhere other than a school that goes through so much paper and wastes the paper could be recycled, but it is not. Then there's also manufacturing, which are metals, plastics, paper, glass, wood, chemicals, and organic wastes. Resource extraction, so like forestry or mining. There are metals, woods, chemicals, and crushed rock. Agriculture, farming, fishing, and nurseries. Organic waste, chemicals, plastics. So these are what we're talking about in terms of the specific examples, but also the work environments. So for the procedures, based on the results of all of those tests and questions that the waste audit did, the 4 R's are then put to work. So employees are asked to find ways to reduce and to reuse. So those are our primary things. Then they are taught how to recycle by separating waste into streams and substreams so that they can actually properly recycled. If they are not separated, then it ruins the entire batch, as it means that they're not going to be as functional. If you get glass in the plastics, then the plastic is not going to be able to be recycled. The workers are asked to think about how to recover energy and materials from whatever garbage that is left. And then they're encouraged to find markets for recycled and recovered materials so they can sell them so that they can be used if they can't be used internally. So that is what we mean by procedures. So now practices and protocols, because procedures become daily practice through checks and incentives. A company, so for example, a company might hold contests to see which department can reduce and recycle the most and use the most recycled products and so on. So the employee initiatives can also result in practices that help protect the environment. These include carpooling, streamlining work procedures, and telecommuting. So practices are things that we do that help reduce our environmental impact. So specifically, telecommunicating allows employees to work at home or travel while using computers and devices. It was funny reading this part in your workbook because your workbook is so old that just them explaining telecommuting is kind of ridiculous in light of COVID-19 and how majority of people have been working from home and telecommuting for some part, if not all, of the last 2 years. So it is something that I would assume that most folks are fairly familiar with. And then, so this means that the result is fewer commuters and less need for office space, which means that there's less building and less pollution in the environment because we're not driving around or using these big buildings. So then practices help conserve water and energy. So there are ways that can help. So one simple way is to fix any leaky anywhere in your house or work that are leaking promptly. Don't let it sit and leak forever. Get it fixed. Don't waste that water. And also install low flow toilets, faucets, and shower heads. Switching to fluorescent or LED lamps will save considerable money and energy, talked about before. Upgrading your installation will save on heating and cooling costs, so that can be really helpful. More complex and expensive fixes may involve installing wind, solar, or geothermal energy technologies. So these are just the various things of what you can do, the practices you can put in place in order to support the procedures. Operations that use a lot of hot water may benefit from installing waste heat recovery systems. So just lots of different options. And once practices become a standard, they lead to protocols with dealing with future needs. So once they become really ingrained in the current staff, then they get to a point where they want to develop them into protocols so that information can be shared with new staff and everyone has the same information. All right, so that is lesson number 16. Let's go over highlights of what we covered today. So our lesson is protecting the environment at work. And we talked about those 4 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle, and recover. So being able to explain, remembering all 4 of them, but also being able to explain what they are and how they're different from each other. And the order, this order, reduce, reuse, recycle, recover, as that's the important order that is the most beneficial in terms of protecting the environment. Reducing first, then reusing, recycling, then recovering. So that is the first thing that we did. And then the second thing that we did was talking about procedures, practices, and protocols, where procedures are steps that follow to reach a goal or results. The practices come from following these procedures regularly. And then the protocols are an accepted plan that describe how to reach goals and meet challenges. So we figure that out after it's well ingrained in our systems that we really know how to do it. So hopefully you're comfortable with the first success criteria of, the 4 R's are reduce, reuse, recycle, and recover, and why they should be done in that order. And you can explain what procedures, practices, and protocols make a workplace safer. Right, now you should be able to do the review questions on page 135. Questions 1 through 14 are all there. And that is our lesson for today. So if you have any questions or concerns, as always, please reach out. Again, we are wrapping up our course in a few weeks. So a reminder that your coursework, the technical deadline is June 10th, but you need to have your culminating, you also need to do a final culminating project. So I would strongly advise to get that in earlier than later so that you can have time to do your culminating, your final project. It is not an exam, it is a take-home project that you can have time to work on, it's open book, you don't have to have things memorized, you can look things up, you're really applying your knowledge is the idea, instead of just reiterating information. So you need to make sure that you get your coursework done in time so that I can get it back to you so that then you can have it to support you while you are working your culminating activity. And that also needs to be in by June 10th. So if you wait until everything is done, if you finish all of your lessons and you hand them in on June 9th, you're not going to get them back by the time in time for me to you to do your culminating assignment as well. So just things to consider in those last few weeks. Also, we will wrap up all of our new course material by the end of week 8. So that last week, week 9, is going to be a review week, which just gives you time so that you aren't getting the final information on the final days right before you need to hand in all your work and in order to complete your course. So it is strongly advised that you stay sort of on point with the course so that you have that timeline done. All right, so do you want to talk to me about any of this in terms of our course material, or also just questions about the upcoming weeks, please reach out. You can call me at 807-737-1488, extension 2209. You can also call toll free at 1-800-667-3703. You can email me at bronwyn.slate, which is spelled BRONWYN.SLATE at nnec.on.ca. You can connect with me on Facebook at bslate Wahsa. And remember, all of our lessons are uploaded to YouTube, also at bslate Wahsa, where we have our SVN3E playlist. My office hours are Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. So please feel free to reach out to me within that time so that we can connect and I can support you however I can. I hope you have a lovely day. Thanks so much for joining me. Miigwech.